Hey there, fellow streakers. Welcome to another streaking show. We are going to talk to you today about the kindness of strangers in a little town called Rangeley, Colorado, and also a fantastic event, the Nutcracker, for special needs children, which was absolutely amazing. So let's start streaking. Jamie, how are you?
I am great. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. It's all upon us. We've got some kids in, some kids out. It's going to be a ton of fun.
I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of year.
So speaking of Christmas, I think we should just get right into this because the story that I put out there on our streaking app, believe it or not, I actually said, if you want to hear why Jami completed her run walk streak in Rangeley, Colorado, you got to listen to the podcast today.
That's right. That was yesterday. Was that yesterday?
It was 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So with the holidays, obviously there's travel that goes on, and a lot of family is moving from one place to the next to go and visit people here and there. And we similarly are having the same. So Jami was with me on a business trip, and we worked things out to where Natalia and Caleb would pick her up. I would finish my meetings.
You were on a business trip. We were in Utah.
Yeah, we were in Utah.
You were saying your trip with your business meetings was in Park City. So they were going to come down from Idaho.
Right.
Pick me up in Park City, and then we were going to drive
back
to Colorado.
Which they did. Right. And so you left on a Wednesday of this
and
week.
Of course,
so Wednesday of this week.
We've had no snow.
Zero.
Until Tuesday night when it started snowing. And it snowed through the night, but it kind of stopped in the morning, Wednesday morning, when we were going to leave. So they left from snow, with snow in Idaho, and came down and picked me up. And we all got in the car, and we'd checked our routes several times, and we were clear to go. And then we get in the car, and it reroutes us because I-80 had closed.
For some odd reason. Now, this was about 2 p.m, right?
Yeah, it was in the afternoon, I was a little irritated that I didn't know that it had closed earlier because it had closed earlier. But anyway, so it rerouted us to take I-70, which from Park City is not obviously as close as taking I-80. Right.
It's not a straight shot because what you do is there's 3 routes across the mountains. There's I-80, 40, US 40, or I-70. Mm-hmm. And so what it was trying to do was get you down to I-70. So you had to start on
US 40.
Via US 40, right.
So we're going along, and we've plugged it in, and and we're just talking up a storm, Natalia and Caleb and I, and then Caleb sleeps for a little bit, and Natalia and I are talking, and it starts getting dark. And the roads are basically pretty clear. We're great. And then all of a sudden we realize we missed a turn. Just barely, though. And we're like,
so was it still light out then when you missed the turn?
It was like a little after 5 o'clock. So it was
getting dusk. It was dusk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we're like, oh, rats, we missed a turn. So we flip the U on 40, and we go and make this turn onto CR 65, County Road 65. And I didn't think much of it. Actually, at the time, I was frustrated that I hadn't been paying attention to my GPS and that we missed the turn. I've been trying harder to pay attention to that kind of stuff. And I was a little irritated. I was like, dang it, I missed the turn. I got to stop getting so involved in the conversation and pay attention to what's going on around me.
Streakers, let me just tell you right now, to have Jami not be involved in a conversation, not going to happen. So just to let you know, she loves to talk with and get into, and that's why we love doing this podcast, is because it's the conversation.
You're having a great deep conversation.
So
we flip the U and we go and we make this turn, and we're driving, and at this point Caleb had kind of been sleeping a little bit, and Natalia was driving, and Caleb woke up and got involved in our conversation. And as we're talking, I start to get distracted because I'm looking around, and I'm like, we are on some back road. All of a sudden there's no other cars traveling, and the road's getting narrower, and it had started to get really, like, the road we were on now was packed in snow and ice, and it just suddenly felt very, very remote and icy and cold. And so I'm saying, guys, something doesn't seem right. And I don't even know if I said it out loud or if I was just thinking it in my head, because I was trying to still kind of pay attention to the conversation. Anyway, I start to look at my phone because I'm wanting to see how long are we going to be on this road. And Natalia's like, this is getting kind of slick. And all of a sudden we kind of start to slide. We hadn't been traveling very fast. We were going maybe 25 or 30 because it had started to get slick.
Right.
So I'm looking at my phone thinking, how many more miles are we on this road? And we start to slide. And she's like, guys, I'm sliding. And Caleb was like, you're fine, you're fine. But we weren't. We kept sliding, and the road kind of went off, not into a ditch, but the road was elevated, and then you rolled down kind of the mountain a little bit. And we started to slide, and then next thing we knew, the car just tipped
and
over.
You rolled over.
And we rolled, yeah.
Wow.
Well, we didn't roll. We really just tipped. And the reason I say that is because anyone who's been in an accident that things turned out okay, you look back and think of all the things that could have gone wrong, and you realize kind of how protected or how lucky you were that things didn't go worse.
Right.
And rolling is one of them. As I've looked back at that, I think I am so grateful that we just tipped and we didn't continue the momentum.
But the car
and roll.
did end up on its side.
Yeah, both
and everything.
of the,
I mean, basically everything fell.
So both of the side, what they call curtain airbags, deployed. So both curtain airbags deployed. And for me, I was behind the driver, so all the stuff that was in the back seat,
because it rolled to the driver's side.
Rolled to the driver's side.
Okay.
And so all the stuff that was on the other side of the car, the coolers and blankets and pillows and coats and all that stuff that we just kind of piled over there, all landed on top of me. And so it took a minute.
Come on, that had to be a little bit freaky.
It was a little scary because my arms were pinned and the cooler was on top of me, and I couldn't get it off of me.
Right.
And it took us a minute to realize that this had really happened.
Wow.
Because I think we all genuinely thought, oh, we'll stop sliding at any minute and it'll be one of those close calls kind of thing, not actual. Didn't. But no, the car actually tipped.
So at that point, you're pinned. You don't know quite what to do. But does Caleb just start asking?
Caleb is a pretty cool cucumber, and I think likes preparing for the possibility of emergency situations. So, and has been in some harrowing situations in the past, and so his emergency Boy Scout be prepared kicked in, and he kind of just started talking us through it. It's like, okay, checked on Tally, are you okay? They said they called my name 3 or 4 times before I answered. I think I couldn't hear them, or I was processing, I don't know, kind of freaked him out a tiny bit. But then Caleb was able to help get the cooler off of me. And then
that would be scary if I called your name 2 or 3 times and you hadn't answered.
I hadn't answered yet.
I would immediately start digging. What happened?
Where is
Did she get knocked unconscious?
Yeah.
Because even though you say it just tipped, there's so many things that could happen as far as I was thinking about any of the luggage or anything that hits you in just the right way, or and at the time we didn't, the idea that it could hit you.
Yes.
That's huge scary.
And we didn't know how precarious we were. Like, were we going to keep rolling? Were we going to roll? Were we on the edge of something?
Right.
And so Caleb was able to help get the cooler off of me. And so my first vision was of Natalia kind of suspended sideways, obviously being held by her seatbelt. Because I remember her hair was going a funky direct. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
The hair is going
because
down
it's all weird because
suspended.
gravity is pulling you one way.
Yes.
And it's disorienting because you should be facing a different way.
And that was me. I was trying to figure out, like, okay, it's the cooler on top of me, but they had pulled the seat next to me. They had folded it down, and then in the wreck, it had kind of popped up. So I was trying to figure out, I'm like, I don't understand where I am and where this seat is and where's the door. And so Caleb was great. He was climbing around and was awesome to say, well, we need to climb out. And both Tally and I are like, well, we don't want to tip. And he's like, we're not going to tip. We're fine. So he was able to find the passenger door, in the front seat and help Natalia climb out.
So opened it straight up, basically.
Opened it straight up. And he was great. He's like, we need coats. Everybody see if you can find your coat. And so we were able to gratefully find our coats. I was grateful that I hadn't taken my shoes off. A lot of times when we're traveling, I take my shoes off, and I hadn't.
This time you hadn't yet.
Yeah. And so we got our coats, and Natalia was able to climb out the top of the car, which was, there was the side of the car, but now it was the top of the car. So we opened the doors and she was able to climb out. And then Caleb helped me unbuckle and climb out. That was a fun thing. I've never climbed down the bottom of the car. So I put my foot on something and it spun. I was like, oh, that moves. So I don't know what it was.
Wow. So you you were just, because the car is a Nissan Xterra, and so it's a larger SUV. I mean, not a huge one. However, you were able to climb down basically the undercarriage.
Yeah, we climbed down the underneath of the car and climb out, and then Caleb was the last to get out. And the minute we opened that door, we realized how cold it was. Now I go back and look, and it was like 12 degrees.
Because you're between Utah and Colorado, and in some back road.
We really are in the middle of nowhere. So we climb out, and I immediately notice how cold it is. And as I am climbing out and climb out, we see lights. And
no way.
Yes. And so Natalia's...
On this back road where there was no one else, where you thought you're completely alone, all of a sudden there's headlights.
There was headlights. So we were able to scramble up to the top of the road. I think the good Lord was
watching over you guys.
I don't think it. I know it. So we were able to scramble up to the top of the road, and Natalia and I were able to wave him down while Caleb is still climbing out of the car. And it's these two hunters, a gentleman and his son. And they stop, and they're like, "Are you guys okay?" We're like, "Well," and immediately they're like, "What are you doing here? You're like in the middle of nowhere." And then they look over, and we say, "Well, our car tipped." And that's when they see the car, and they're like, "Holy cow, are you guys okay?" Because I think before they thought we were just walking down the road. They didn't see the car.
Right.
And so they were super great. And at this time this is when I kind of started to get a little shaky. I was cold and kind of processing what had happened. And again, just so grateful that they came quickly. So there was a couple key things that happened. They came quickly. They had cell phone coverage, which we didn't, because they had a certain, I think they had Verizon or something, and they got coverage.
So you
right
didn't
there.
have any coverage at all?
I didn't.
Because someone asked me that. They said, "Well, did they have cell coverage?" And I thought that you did, but they didn't. I think Caleb did, because I was able to talk with Caleb.
That's right. He did, because he's on a different
right
plan too.
Yeah.
So, and then the other great thing is that these hunters knew right where we were. They were familiar with the road. So they stopped, they called 911. They stayed with us for probably about 45 minutes or a little bit longer.
Wow.
They let us sit in their truck and get warmed up. And they stayed on the phone with 911 the whole time and talked them out to find out where we were, because we were kind of, like I said, we're kind of remote. It turns out that it's a dirt road. It's kind of an old mining road. We're not the first people for GPS to route this way. Apparently, the U.S.
All right, Streakers, do you ever ask the question, why did GPS take me this way?
Yes.
I mean, and
did
there
it
are
not think there was a storm?
No, see, that's the key right there. GPS does not think.
It was
it's
like,
an algorithm.
This is
the shortest route. It finds the shortest route, and it routes you to that route.
Yep.
That's why we still have to be intentional and deliberate. This is where we take a little bit of streaking break and say why streaks are so important, is because when you put things on autopilot, there's many times where it can lead you in a direction where you really don't want to go.
Yeah, you miss things. And that's what it was. We were just following that GPS. And I look back, and at one point Natalia was like, "Could I have done something different so we didn't slide?" And I thought where we made our mistake was getting on the road. We should have just stayed on 40.
Yes, we should have asked the question before we got on that.
If we had looked a little bit more closely and thought, this is not a road we want to be on.
Right.
Let's take the extra 20 minutes and stay on this, on US 40. And
so then progressing on the story, basically the hunter stayed there with you. You were in their truck, and then what emergency responders came?
The first person that came was a park ranger, because
Okay.
that's where we were, in the middle of nowhere. So the first person to respond was a park ranger, and the beautiful thing is, we come to find out we're close. We're about 20 minutes from Rangeley, Colorado, which is a small town in Colorado. And the people there, I feel a little bit like their family now.
They all, they're part of our
part of
family?
my family, because
Yes.
they just, I met the ranger. He was the first one to respond to it. And then shortly after that, an ambulance
Do you remember
and a fire
the park
truck
ranger's
came.
name by chance? I know I ask you and you'd be
And
like,
I don't remember it now. Darn it. I know he's from Meeker, and Natalia remembers it.
Yeah.
But the thing here's what was amazing to me is that we're on this remote road and we tip the car, and all of the realization that comes with that, where you're like, our car tipped over and we're crawling out of it. And we go from being completely alone and very cold. And I swear 12 degrees in the middle of nowhere is colder than 12 degrees in the city. I don't know why, but it felt so cold. And so we went from, and it's dark and the sky is really clear, which was great, but it really did enhance this feeling of feeling very alone. And to then one single truck coming by with lights that stops. And then in 45 minutes, we had a park ranger, an ambulance with all of its lights, another sheriff's car, and a fire truck. And all of a sudden there was just people, lots and lots of people all there to help, all there that came to help us.
This community of people came together to help you.
To help us. And so we were able to get in the ambulance, and they checked everything to make sure we were okay and ask us all the questions.
And that was Shannon, wasn't it?
That was the EMT. And there was about 4 of them. I don't know all of their names, but they were all very kind, very friendly, very understanding, asked us where we were going. Why are you on this road? Why are you here?
We don't know why we're on this road.
And then when we tell them, that's what I said, when I tell them where we're trying to get to, they're like, oh, GPS, huh? You're not the first. And then they tell us about the U.S. Olympic ski team that this same thing happened to. But of course,
and skis were everywhere.
But you just get a feel of these people that their job and their life, they spend coming and helping in these situations. And so we were able to, the fire truck drove us to a hotel in Rangeley, Colorado.
First time ever you were chauffeured to a hotel. On a fire truck.
And it's great because on the way.
Was that great? I mean, come on. Did they turn the lights on and the sirens, or was it just a regular drive?
It was just a regular drive. Oh. But the fire truck needed chains to get up the hill on the road that we were on.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't know that we would have made it.
You would have been like,
we would have slid off the road at some point.
We're not going to make this.
Yeah, something would have happened. And so, but it was this great community where the fire truck, that one of the firefighters in there, Keenan, it's like, let me call my uncle. He's got the tow truck. Jerry, he's the guy that's going to get you out. And so they all just knew each other and were really great. They knew exactly which hotel we should go to.
So meanwhile, back at the meeting that I was at, I get a phone call, and on my caller ID, it says Caleb. And I know it's Caleb, and I know they're traveling together. And I'm in the middle of a business dinner. We were at a beautiful dinner, Christmas dinner. I was enjoying it. You know, we're enjoying all the things that come along with holiday treats. And I see Caleb's name, and we're at a place where I can answer. So I answer. I said, hey, Caleb, how you doing? Thinking that I was getting a status update. Well, I was definitely getting a status update. And the status update, I knew there was something wrong when Caleb said, well. And the next words out of his mouth were, we rolled the car. And the next words out of my mouth were, is everyone okay?
Is everyone okay?
And he said, we're all okay. No one has a scratch. He told me where they were and everything that was happening. Well, having that phone call distracted me for the rest of the night. And obviously I wanted to be where you guys were to help out in whatever way that I could. And so you and I made the determination the next morning that I would come and join you in Rangeley, Colorado, where I met Jerry, who is the most friendly, fantastic tow truck driver that there is.
They're friendly, they're fantastic, and they're knowledgeable. They know, he
knows all the surrounding area. He went out with Caleb to get the car. They towed it and were able to put it on the tow truck. What's interesting is, as we're watching this, Jerry comes back with Caleb the next morning. The car is on the tow truck, and the mail lady drives up, and she's delivering the mail. And I see Jerry kind of look at her, and then he pats her on the butt. And I thought, wow, this is a really friendly town. It's his wife.
She's delivering the mail.
She was delivering the mail. And she asked him, hey, are you going to be late to the meeting tonight? I heard that. I don't know what meeting it was, but she asked him.
Well, Jerry's a great guy.
Oh, my goodness, just phenomenal.
He's on a whole bunch of the boards for the school.
Yeah.
And he helps with. So this leads to the second thing that we had happen this weekend. So one of the things that Jerry was over is all of the special needs programs that they have in Rangeley, Colorado, for the schools. So it was really neat to spend a little time in the tow truck. Professional Touch is the name of his company, and to see, he has a wall where he has all of these thank you cards from different people. And I realized right away we weren't the first out of town people that he had come and rescued
and saved.
And then I secondly realized how involved he was with his community in the school, because he had a whole bunch of thank yous and different
over in his office,
all
just
over,
plastered all of the different pictures of the school and letters and thank you notes
and just different things that he was involved in. So that was our first week. We were able to get the car fixed and drive it back to Colorado.
Believe it or not, the tip did not cause as far as driving damage or anything else. So we were able
drivable, so we were able to drive it, and we're in the process of getting it fixed. So that leads us to the next day, which our daughter is in Nutcracker. And this Friday night
so this daughter is Lily. So Lily's in Nutcracker, has been in dance since she was 6 years old, and has just a phenomenal lead in the Nutcracker. She's the Arabian lead, and very excited and just absolutely beautiful.
And I was excited to get back for this. I was volunteering. Both you and I had signed up to volunteer for the Friday night performance This is the second weekend that they've done Nutcracker. And this special Friday night performance is what they call sensory friendly. And in all of my years of dance and all of the years that I've worked with Lily and all the different studios that we've been at, this was my first experience with the dance studio
is what,
doing
15 years?
Yeah.
Because, Lily is, since she was 6, 12 years.
13 years.
Yeah, 12 or 13 years.
And we've danced at 5 different dance studios in that time. And so we've had a lot of, and some competing studios and different things. But this is the first time that I've seen a studio do a performance specifically for people with special needs. So they call it a sensory friendly performance. It was they would only sell tickets to families that had a child with special need. They called the guest of honor would come for free. And then they deeply discounted the tickets for the family members. And it was great. So they do things a little bit differently. They change the music to take out the super high pitches of the music. They keep the lights a little bit higher. They let you sit wherever you want to sit. They let the kids and the families walk up and down the aisles if they want, or they can go up to the stage and be right there leaning on the stage. They don't let them get on the stage, obviously, but they can go right up front. And so it was so neat.
This was a phenomenal experience. So I was an usher on one side and Jami was an usher on the other side. And the first thing that happened that I was absolutely amazed by were the parents of these children as they came in, as I looked at each family, and first of all, how happy they were. And secondly, looking at each one of the parents and thinking we've raised 7 children, none of them with special needs.
Nope.
I'm teasing. None of them with special needs. But these parents, there's a special place in heaven for these folks.
You can just
because
see
what they do and what they sacrifice to help their children have the life that they could have at the best of their ability. And these special needs were all from children in wheelchairs that couldn't move, but maybe a finger or, maybe move legs, or with different tics and different nuances. That one of the children that came in, he was an older child, but he always had to be spinning this little toy. That was his,
the entire
and he moved
performance.
the entire performance. And then there was this one little girl who came in, and I think she had Down syndrome, from what I could tell. I remember watching her, and I was just so amazed, and her parents were just absolutely lovely people. She went in. I saw her sit down in about this back of the first section. So in the orchestra,
like
where they call the orchestra.
5 or 6 rows back.
Yeah, 5 or 6 rows back. And the music starts, and the dancers come on stage, and she has this beautiful little dress on. And she gets up and starts to dance a little bit.
Too.
Did you watch this?
I watched her.
And then her parents had her sit down.
Yeah, she stands up, you can just see she's so excited that it's starting.
So her parents have her sit back down. But one of the things that I really admire about the artistic director of this sensory needs one, she came on stage first and said, "We'd like to welcome all of our guests of honor. We sure appreciate all of you being here. And I want to let you know that we're not shushing anyone tonight. If you're walking up and down the aisles, we're not making any note of that. Our ushers are here for your safety. But other than that, please let your children express themselves in the way that they want to."
Yep.
So this little girl, a couple of times her parents pulled her down, and then an usher came up and said, "You're welcome. She's welcome to do whatever she'd like." So she got up and went right up to the stage. And then when one of the principal ballerinas came on, she started to dance like that principal ballerina started to dance. And in that moment, I thought, this may be the only time that little girl has an opportunity to perform in a professional setting. And there was just no way you couldn't be moved by this very wonderful, special, amazing experience.
And just watching the joy that
she was
had
so happy
as she watched these dancers, and then she would mimic what they were doing, and then she would stop and wave at them, and she'd yell, "Hi, ballerina, hi, ballerina." And just the appreciation and enthusiasm and love that they had as they watched these dancers. She
was one of the only ones that was doing it at first, but then in the second half, all kinds of little girls that...
Some of them clear from the top. They had started at the back of the theater at the top.
Yes.
And I saw one little girl come all the way down
to the stage
and do the same thing for the whole
lean
last
on the
half.
stage and just amazed at these ballerinas. And then they would dance, and then they would watch her dance. And it was
absolutely
neat.
Afterwards,
amazing.
We're talking to Lily, and she said, I love that I got the chance to see expressed what I so often feel in dance, which is I feel an emotion of happiness and I want to just get up and dance. But she said, I've learned that when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate. And so I don't do that way.
Well, and I think some of us too, the social inhibitions that we have, that we don't want to be looked at as weird or strange or any of those things. And for these kids, they live their emotions, what they're feeling, they show.
And Lily loved it. She said it was so liberating and so appreciated as a dancer to see them enjoy it so much and to feel moved, like what I feel moved when I hear the music, when I hear those things and I'm like, I want to dance. And to see the kids in the audience feel that same emotion, to see that music and think, I want to dance. It was such a moving thing. And then what you said at the end of the night, to watch these parents go back home knowing that they are on their game 24/7 with these children. They are always watching and protecting and keeping safe.
You know what was interesting is I watched the father, I think the father, it may have been a brother, a father, whoever it was that was working with the one special guest of honor that was always moving, always moving. He was so gentle in the way that he would suggest that he sit down or that he never forced him to do anything. It was simple touches voices. Like, come on, here we go. Let's try this. And it was always just this really relaxing tone. And I thought, what an amount of patience that would bring on to work with someone that really just basically never stopped moving.
And I thought the same thing, because as he's moving, they'd obviously found something that helped him with his moving. So he had a spinner thing, but that spinner thing would hit his headphones every time it spun around. So it was a constant noise in connection with his constant moving. And you are right. His brother or father who was with him was so patient and so kind, as were the other people in the audience.
Absolutely.
Everyone was patient
else.
with all of the different nuances and the different things that were happening with the people. And there was a lot of them. There was some intense coughing or a little bit of choking. There was cheering. There was crying.
I saw that mother. So she was watching after her son who would drink something and then choke quite significantly, because he was one of the ones that was pretty much paralyzed in a full wheelchair. And she was just so patient and kind with him, and obviously had handled that before.
Yes.
Because she was able to take care of it very, I don't want to say quickly, but in a way that was comfortable for her and for him. She was just right there.
Yes. Did you see at the end that young man who was in the wheelchair and the girl in the pink dress that was dancing up front high five each other?
I did.
That was a tender moment for me.
Yeah, because he raised his hands and she came over and high-fived him.
Yep.
It was...
Don't cry. I'm not crying.
Yeah, I know. I can tell. You're holding back the tears.
So it was a tender moment.
It was emotional at every single level. One of the areas... So there were brothers and sisters of the guests of honor, and the brothers and sisters didn't have the disabilities that the guests of honors had. And I was working with three, it looked like three that were either siblings, and they were sisters of one of the individuals in the audience. I don't know who it was, but they were liberated. They were like, I can run up and down, I can switch seats, I can go anywhere. And as children, they were taking advantage of that. And so one of the things that we were told as ushers is that basically you allow everything except for going up on the stage, or if they're obviously going to be endangering themselves or get hurt. Well, these three little girls had come up to a section where we had some autistic people, and the autistic people did not want anyone around them. That's why they went all the way to the back of the theater, and they were on their own, and either a mother or father was with them. And these little girls had decided that they wanted to be up in these higher seats as well. And so they were climbing all over, in and out and back and forth and laughing and giggling and chasing. And one of the autistic guests of honor, you could tell he would get agitated because he'd start to stomp his feet, and he'd stomp them really hard. And then when the girls would go away, he would calm down and he wouldn't stomp his feet anymore. And I could tell that the mom was just a little bit having a difficult time, not sure what to do, because they had specifically chosen these seats because of where it was in the remote part of the theater. So what I decided that I would do is instead of watching the performance, I would watch these girls. And so I just looked at them the whole time. And every time I looked at them, they would see that I was watching them and they'd calm down.
They're a little bit quieter.
And they'd be, they'd test the water a little bit. And I would move a little closer to them and just keep watching. And they finally calmed down. And so then I sat down. And as I sat down, I would glance at them every once in a while, but then they'd get, they get a little bit crazy again. And so I'd stand up. However, the reason why I go into all that detail is because what that then did is it still allowed them some expression, but it also gave the autistic boy the opportunity to participate. And I heard him when he was coming by after it was over. He said, in his autistic way, that was the best thing I ever saw. And he would stomp down the stairs in excitement. And he was so impressed with the performance in whatever way that he was comprehending it. And the other thing that happened is these three little girls, when they saw the one little girl dancing, they went all
down.
the way down and watched the ballerinas right up at the front of the stage. So they had an impact. This whole sensory ballet just had an impact on everyone there. It is something that I want to go to again. And I would love to usher it again.
I felt privileged to have the opportunity to be a small part of it.
Yes.
Through my volunteer hours.
Yes.
And I guess I was just impressed this weekend with the kindness of these people that are just going about contributing in ways that they're familiar with. And I look at it and I think the people in Rangeley, Colorado that had the expertise to know how to get me out of a situation that I didn't know how to get myself out of.
Right.
And were able to, and then so freely willing to share, you should go to this hotel, you should do these things, just helping me out and helping us get back on the road and to where we needed to be. And then coming to this sensory performance where everybody was coming together, the artistic director that even had the thought to do this, to set this up, the ability to discount it, to make it something that families can come to, affordable. Then the parents that volunteer to usher, the dancers who are willing to spend so many hours perfecting their dancing abilities to share those talents with
another
them.
Little thing, just an interruption there. In the beginning, the music, because they had changed it repeated 3 different times. And the dancers, when it repeats, the dancers are trying to progress it forward. And they're like, something's not forward. So there was a point where they basically closed the curtains. We applauded. We thought it was a scene that was over. When they closed the curtains, they reset the music. And then off to the performance they went. And I think that was because of what you were saying earlier, that they had changed the music so that it was more sensory friendly toward those who were in the audience.
Right. And then I looked at the people that had put the performance on and all of the work that went into having the event happen. But then I also looked at the families that came to that event and the impact that they had on me and my desire to. So I noticed those girls that you were talking about too that didn't have special needs, but were being rather rambunctious. And at first I was like, oh, maybe we should go tell them to kind of be quiet because they know better. And then right afterwards, the thought hit me, these are siblings of a family that has special needs, which means a huge amount of attention is going to taking care of that child with the special need. And who knows that this isn't an opportunity for them, that they have friends and they're not helping with that child right now. They're playing, they're enjoying, they're having a little bit of freedom. And instantly I was like, okay, I don't want to shut that down either. Just this understanding of all of these people and how they are bringing their talents and their challenges together and literally blessing the lives of all the people around them.
It is absolutely
in
amazing.
Different ways.
What I see too is in both of these areas, these are both communities. And we talk about law number 3 in streaking, which is to create a community. And the community is for what purpose? To celebrate.
To celebrate.
And
to
that's
inspire,
what I saw. We celebrated with the people in
encourage.
Rangeley, Colorado, who in this small little town, if you ever get a chance to go on US 40, it's a little bit of a tick off of US 40, but go to Rangeley, Colorado. It's just this great little beautiful town, and meet Jerry, the tow truck driver. He is absolutely worth every part of the gold that we had the opportunity to associate with him. How they could come together as a community and help you. And then also the community of the arts, especially the Colorado Conservatory. Isn't that Lily's?
Colorado Conservatory of Dance is where she's dancing.
They come together, and as a community celebrate these special guests who in any other scenario would not be able to go to a ballet, especially of this caliber. I mean,
Yes.
this is a professional ballet that you buy tickets to, and there is beautiful performers. The Sugar Plum Fairy is absolutely gorgeous, and her prince is amazing, and they dedicated their time, energy, and effort to years and years of practice to be able to perform on stage, and they willingly gave that to these individuals who could basically steal the show from them, but they contributed as well.
Right.
And this community that came together to celebrate them, that's what I look at that's so beautiful about streaking in particular, is you can create all these different communities. And from it, you start to associate yourselves with other communities. It's really
and
neat.
we're all lifted up and
Yeah.
made better.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about some of the different podcasts that I've listened to and books that I'm reading, and was really struck with the idea of how each of us have a passion around something, and that when we take that passion and we share it with someone else, we are able to teach what we've learned, share our experiences, and then people grow
Yeah.
and learn more things and are inspired and want to be better. And we take all of these different pieces, and it all comes from different people being willing to share their passions. And
So,
that's what I feel.
I have
the
a question for
community
you. You tip the car, all right, and now you're in the hotel. I'm supposing that you had not done some of your streaks, many of your streaks, whatever.
I hadn't. And I had that thought. I had run in the morning,
Okay.
and I had drank my water on the way. I was drinking my water. And I'm trying to think. And I think I had read from a book, because I'd spent the morning in the hotel, but I totally relaxed the morning that I was in the hotel. I took a nap. I played some computer games. I did a little shopping online. I did not do my streaks in the morning.
So that night, you got checked into the hotel, you sat down. Now, sometimes people would say, well, you could just miss, you went through a traumatic experience, you can miss. Why did you choose to do your streaks?
I didn't want to lose them. Well, and here's something, a couple things I thought about. One, I was like, okay, I brought the things I needed to complete my streaks. I had them. I was able to get them out of the car. Everything I needed was in my backpack to be able to complete the streaks. So that was one thing. So I did think it did help me to look at dependencies and traumatic experiences, where I was like, okay, what would I have done and there are some traumatic experiences that you're going to lose your streaks. I mean, just some things, like had we been injured and not conscious, I wouldn't have got my streaks done.
Sure.
Obviously.
Right.
But I really was amazed and grateful that I was like, even after this pretty traumatic, totally unexpected experience, here I am in a hotel sitting with my journal and a pen, writing it all down. And doing that.
And that's one of your streaks, is to write at least one sentence in your journal.
One sentence
daily.
in my journal. And I was doing that and I was so tired. And that
But couldn't you just have waited to the next morning? I mean, okay, so let's say you broke all the streaks and you could wait to the next morning. I mean, couldn't you have done that?
I didn't want to, though. There was something grounding, familiar,
comforting
in being able to sit there and process. And my streaks helped me do that. They totally helped me do that.
As I look at and consider and know some of your streaks, and I think of my streaks, I think that the reason that I do them in circumstances which would normally be one that I wouldn't do some of these things, to your point, it helps me to stay grounded and focusing on who I continually want to be. Mm-hmm. So that no matter the circumstance, I'm not going outside of who I want to be. I'm not losing my kindness in an event of someone being really mean to me.
Right.
I'm not losing my sense of spirituality in the face of something happening that is really quite traumatic. Mm-hmm. I'm actually continually doing the activities that will get me to the person I ultimately want to be. I think that is what has been liberating for me as you and I have been on this streaking journey, is it helps me to be consistent in circumstances that I could be pretty ugly.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Totally. And it helped me realize that the things that I have as streaks truly are who I want to be. So my geography streak that night was to look at the map and figure out what road it had taken me on. Why did it take me on that road? And where US 40 would have dropped me. Like, I took some time and thought, okay, this is where I was going. This is where I was trying
really
to get
neat,
to.
Actually.
So that was, and I thought, this is part of the reason I have this geography streak, is to help me pay attention to the world around me and get better at understanding where things are and directions. And
right.
and I did that streak, and I was like, yeah, this is who I want to be. And
so do you know I started a new
it.
streak?
No.
A journal writing streak. Did I tell you that?
No.
I'm 8 days in.
Nice job.
Yep.
What made you decide to?
So I finally decided to start one. So I didn't have a journal writing streak. I was writing because I want to be a writer. And so I write at least one article a week. I write at least one letter a week. And I write at least one sentence a day towards an article, letter, or book on a daily basis. However, what I found is, and a lot of the things that we've been studying, like, for example, gratitude, and looking at people who've talked about gratitude, and we talk about kindness.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about being a kinder person. A common theme through all of them was a journal.
Mm-hmm.
Journal and write your moments. I've actually been listening to Whitney Johnson's podcast on Disrupt Yourself, because we're going to be on her show here next year a little bit. And so I've been listening to...
And we're actually going to have her on ours.
Yeah, we're going to have her on ours as well. We have some really great people
podcasts
coming in 2022. We, as I've listened to the people who she interviews, almost to a person, they have some type of a journal where they write a gratitude statement, a kindness statement, a statement of things that have happened through the day. And they always say that it helps them to remind them who they are. And so I thought, you know what? I probably need to start writing this. And so I started a journal streak, which, like I said, is 8 days old. And it's the same as your streak. Write at least one sentence in my journal daily. And it's the first time where I haven't felt like I've had to write a book. Mm-hmm. And secondly, it's where I felt like I could be unfiltered. And the third thing is I capture in very short words the moments of the day. Mm-hmm. That's been really helpful. And so that's what I see with what you were saying in regards to tipping, is you're capturing the moments of the day.
Yep. And it gave me a chance to look back, and I had a huge amount of gratitude for a lot of things. I had a huge amount of gratitude for what didn't happen. I had a huge amount of gratitude for the people that were there and what did happen.
And most of all,
I took some time to...
We're both grateful to God for watching after and protecting and helping each one of us in the ways that we were.
Yep.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening in today, fellow streakers. We hope that you have a safe and wonderful Christmas celebration, and also a Happy New Year. We've got a special New Year. Is it next week? No, it's not next week. Next week will be just after Christmas. But the week after that, we have a huge announcement for streaking. And we're really, really excited about it. But we'll hold off on that because it's going to be Talon and I that'll be talking about that. Next week, we'll probably be talking a little bit about Christmas, or maybe we'll be doing an encore episode since it is actually Christmas. But we'll do one of those. If you'd like to ask any questions, reach out to us at Jeffrey, Jeffery, at streakingmastery.com, or
Jami, Jami, at streakingmastery.com, or find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn,
or download the app.
Streaking,
Streaking, Streaking, the Streaking app at Google Play or the Apple App Store. And get ready, because the app is getting a huge upgrade, and it is something that will knock your socks off and be fantastic for our community of streakers. Well, until next time,
keep streaking.
A better